Okay, everybody, why don't we get started? Welcome to School of Business's centennial version of Careers in Finance. Careers in Finance is a program that started probably around 10 years ago with our previous dean, Bud Barnes, bringing in folks from the community to talk with all of you about careers in finance. So we've continued that tradition to this day. We've expanded it to other disciplines. I'm sure all of you know that and see the email announcements that come out about the different programs that go on. So thrilled to have you here. One quick reminder, this is being recorded. It is available at a later date on our YouTube channel, Zag Business Events. But with that, I want to turn it over to, is moderator the right word? Yeah?
I can do lots of things.
I want to turn it over to a guy that can do lots of things, Kevin McQuilkin. Kevin is our new executive in residence here at Gonzaga. I'm sure you're going to learn a little bit about his background, particularly apropos to today's event. So with that, Kevin, take it away.
Thank you, Ken. Welcome, everybody. Just to give the panel here some context. How many seniors? Seniors, raise your hand. Okay. Juniors? Sophomores? All right. Any freshmen? All right.
Nice job.
Getting off to a fast start. Excellent. It's important. It's one of the messages you're going to hear from us. So we've got a great panel. We've got some alums. We've got some friends from the university and business school. What they all have in common is a love for the university, a commitment to the students, and that not just comes from a enjoyment and a background, but it comes from a long track record of hiring dads and being successful. That's what we want to help you think about. The point of this exercise is to talk about finance broadly. One of the things we learned, we've done the Gonzaga track in New York for about a dozen years. And one of the reasons we've done that is to give people a perspective on what exactly can you do with a degree in finance. And it's not just banking, it's not just asset management. There's a lot of different things you can do. So we put together a panel to talk about that in a broad context. The way we're going to do this is we've got 5 panelists, not counting me. Everybody's going to spend a very short window on what they do, who they are, their background. And they've each got a very specific question they're going to try to address. Okay? Things like, what skills do you need? How do you deal with interviews in Zoom? Things like that. Okay? We're going to blow through that as fast as we can. Save your question to the end. And then anybody that's in the room, raise your hand and we'll get the questions. We're going to try to do that as much as we can. And anybody on Zoom who we can't see, please use the chat box thing, okay? And Danielle's going to manage the chat box, okay? So that's the way we're going to do it. We have an hour and then we get kicked out of here. Michael, you want us to change the slides? Lots of things that you can do in finance. We've got people here that can talk to all of them. Runs from retail and commercial banking, which you all experience in some fashion. Working in securities, which could be with private clients, it could be with institutions, which, pension plans, things like that. Investment banking, John and I are going to talk about. Private equity and venture capital, something very different. Steve here is working with the venture capital people now, raising money for his new business, and he did it before. And then corporate finance on the end, which we can't see too well. Every company has finance function, right? They have control functions, which is accounting. And they raise money, they have treasury management. There's lots of things you can do within industrial companies or any kind of company, frankly. We've got a couple people on the panel that are going to talk about that. So there's lots of different paths to message for you. So why don't we get started? Michael, put up, all right, that's me. I've been an executive in residence now for exactly 3 weeks, 4 weeks. This is a new week. And some people are saying, what's an executive in residence? And I told Ken, Henderson, as soon as you figure it out, let me know. So we have an answer. It's really 3 things. One is I'm teaching a class right now, mergers and acquisitions, something I did for a long time. We're going to spend a lot of time talking to students like this in the Career Center. I've hired a few hundred people over my career out of undergrad and grad school. So I've got a reasonable background in what works, what doesn't work, and how you manage the system. And then we're going to work with a lot of the faculty on bringing real world stories to the classroom. Last week, the class I teach is mergers and acquisitions. We talked about a transaction that happened about 20 years ago. It had all kinds of different parameters to it. In the last hour, we had the CEO of my client come in and talk to the class. So we're going to do the things like that. I was 35 years in New York on Wall Street as a banker, mostly doing M&A. I retired in April. The moving truck is literally on the road between Connecticut and here right now. So I'm living in an empty house with dogs and my wife, and it's a mess for another week or so. But we're moving home. The Northwest is home for us. You can see up there, I spent time in a few different firms. Graduated from Gonzaga a long, long time ago. Got an MBA, Kellogg. 4 kids, 1 wife. It's an important factor. 2 of the 4 are Zags. 2 I could tell they want to be Zags, but they made a bad choice along the way. And I've been honored to be on the board of trustees here for 14 years. So I've been around quite a bit. So that's me. First up, John from BOEING up there on the screen.
Thank you, Kevin. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for having me today. Like Kevin mentioned, my name is John Scacciotti. Graduated in 2015, where I went through the finance program at GU, and I had a couple of internships in private wealth management, but I wanted to take my career to a corporate finance route. And coming from an Air Force family, I found the perfect opportunity to do so at BOEING. I had the opportunity right off the bat to see the fundamental financials from the in-house point of view, the same financials that the analysts based their coverage off of. So it was a really neat perspective for me. Shortly after that, I was able to support the corporate development team in a flurry of M&A deals. We did about a half dozen acquisitions and joint ventures ranging from 1 to 5 billion in revenue. And that presented me with the opportunity to actually move to Dallas, support the integration and the synergy capture for one of those acquisitions, which was a fantastic opportunity. But then that led to me moving into our corporate audit or financial audit team within the company, where I was able to move about the country, look at our processes, figure out how we do things from a financial controls perspective and build upon that. And that ended up with me settling here in Chicago with our treasury department. I've also kicked off my MBA here, but within the treasury department, there's 2 sides of the house. There's the cash management side and the cash deployment side. What that means for me and my team on the cash management side is we look at managing BOEING's cash reserves, making sure that they're adequately invested. We look at that from the perspectives of liquidity, safety, and return. And we look at those filters in that order. And then on the other side, we look at cash deployment. And right now, a lot of that looks like repairing the balance sheet and our financial leverages. But we also look at making the analysis and the recommendations, share repurchases, as well as investments within the business like R&D or CapEx. And so at a high level, that's where I'm at now in my path here. But I also get the opportunity to comment a bit on networking. And whether you're looking to get your foot in the door with a small exclusive firm like a lot of the panelists, or whether you're looking to navigate within a broad, large company like myself, the network that you build and leverage is going to be critical. And I think first and foremost, it's important to always remember that it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Soft introductions and environments like this are great for laying the foundation. But if the people that you meet don't remember you, it's not going to serve you in the long run. A lot of positions are posted and great opportunities go up, but they already have a specific candidate in mind. And so the goal and objective should always be to be that candidate that's front and center in their mind when the opportunity comes across their desk. And I think doing that humbly with humility is great, but you want to make a lasting impression. And I think leveraging that Gonzaga connection is one of the best ways to do it. Whenever possible, I seek out a ZAG in a department or a company that I'm interested in and start there. But then a common point of failure that I see and I've experienced myself is not keeping in contact. That falls on you entirely. And so the way I do that is I make sure to touch base every 6 months via email with my inner circle of my network. And then whenever I start a new job or whenever I'm pursuing a new opportunity, a new department, new assignment, I call them again. And I make sure that they know exactly where I'm at in my career and the skills I'm looking to develop. And I get any feedback that I can from them. And then building and cultivating that network, a lot of ways to do it. I think LinkedIn is fantastic. There's also Zach's Connect, Handshake, all the resources through the alumni office that make it very easy to connect students, alumni, peers, classmates of similar interests and get the feedback that you want to help get your career on the right trajectory. I'm a product of it myself, leveraging the network with Dr. Shu and professors as well as alumni, and leveraging it whenever possible. And then from a mentorship and to those meetings when I'm building someone into my network, I come with my short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. For me, that looks like 6 months, 2 years, 5-year goals. And I steer the conversations specifically around those goals. And I find that dialogue is much more beneficial to both parties than simply doing an informational where one person talks and one person listens. And so however you want to build your network, if you remember those factors and kind of go strategically about the Gonzaga Alumni Network, I think you can make huge progress, whether you're early in your college years or later or already in your professional career, as long as you just leverage the people that are out there willing and excited to help you. And so I'll turn it back to you, Kevin.
Thanks, John. The message there is network like crazy. One extra piece of advice is every time you meet somebody, especially a ZAG, the last question should be, who are the 2 other people I should contact? Always ask for another contact. And you get it. One of the things that happens here, and you're going to see it in this panel, is ZAGs help ZAGs. We really do. But you have to own it. You have to be proactive. That's the main message that everybody's going to tell you. You have to be proactive. You got to own your own process, own your own career. Okay. Next, Jill. Thanks for being here.
Hello, everybody, and greetings from Tacoma, where it's pouring down rain. No surprise. So this is my 5th tour through the Gonzaga Careers in Finance panel. I am actually not an alum, but I'm a Gonzaga parent. And when my son was a freshman, he basically, along with a couple of ZAGs, they signed me up a little bit of a group effort. So in my current role, I work for a firm that isn't necessarily a household name. We are DA Davidson. We are employee owned, and we are a wealth advisor. We are an investment bank. We sell equity research, and we underwrite municipal securities. So very finance focused, but across a couple of different both the retail side and the institutional side. In my role, I work exclusively with the next generation of financial advisors. So juniors and seniors in particular, I hire interns. Keynote, I have 8 positions open right now across the West. I also hire apprentices. So we hire for a financial advisor apprentice, which is somebody who's very, very interested in helping people reach their financial goals. So what does a financial advisor do? A financial advisor sits across the table. Actually, I like to say sits on the same side of the table with an individual, a family, a foundation, a small pension fund, and really tries to understand their goals and objectives, works out a financial plan, and really walks on, you could call it walks on the road to retirement or to the achievement of the financial goals for that client. So if you're interested in that type of role, let me know. I am actually a Husky, so University of Washington for 3 years, and then I went to Pacific Lutheran for a year, had a little academic, we'll just call it a change up, and some of you understand what it's like to transfer schools. It was good for me actually at the time, but more on that to come. I've been with DA Davidson since 2017. Prior to that, I was with Russell Investments for a very long time and worked in institutional space, worked in their retail offering. So I feel like I have a lot of experience across a number of different areas of financial services. And, you know, on a personal note, the great thing about Gonzaga is it really develops and produces a very well-rounded graduate. I have 3 kids. I'm very active in my community, and just, you know that there's more to life than just work when you get out. It's very important that you have a very well-rounded kind of career and engagement in your community, whatever you choose for that to be. So my role on the panel this morning or this afternoon, I'm going to talk to you about interviewing, because I interview lots and lots of people just like you, looking for jobs, college juniors and seniors. So I want to give you 3 tips, 3 things that you can work on as you're preparing for your interviews. Preparing for the interview is the best way to feel comfortable and confident. And when you're feeling confident going into an interview, guess what? You're a lot less nervous. You feel a lot more confident about how you present yourself and how your answers to these questions are going to shine through. So job number 1, not right now, but grab your resume. Take your resume and do an inventory, right? Unearth the stories that are behind each line on your resume. You know, maybe it's a group project in one of the classes that you took. Just write yourself a note about what worked well there and what didn't. Think about when you first arrived at Gonzaga and your first, you know, housing opportunity. What worked well with that first roommate and what didn't? So walk yourself through things that are related to your first job, your first housing assignment, like I said earlier, maybe a group project, because what it will do is it will spark fodder, if you will, for interview questions. There's nothing worse than sitting down in an interview, and I've had it happen personally, it's kind of the genesis of this little project, than not having any examples when your interviewee says the old, tell me about a time. So be ready, have some examples from some of these different times in your life where maybe it was a struggle and you and your group on your group project overcame a challenge on the project. There's lots and lots of things to talk about. You just need to do yourself a favor and create this little interview inventory and write down some of the group project, or not group project rather, but write down some of the experiences that are behind the different topics and different ideas on your resume. Okay, so that's idea number 1. Idea number 2 is take interview questions and practice them. Create your own interview squad. Take one person who's maybe, or get together rather with one person who's maybe a good friend, and then one person who maybe you don't know so well. So you're going to get a little bit of different feedback. Step 2 in this process, so get your squad together. Step 2 is go out to the Google. Go to a website called The Muse, go to Indeed, go to LinkedIn, just type in pick your number, right? Top 50 interview questions. I like the Muse in particular because it gives you some good feedback on answers. Sit down with your inventory that you've created from your resume, your couple of friends on your squad, and talk through some of the top interview questions. It will help you practice. It will help you start to articulate and format in your brain how you're going to answer some of these questions, because you all, as you sit down in your first couple of interviews, are going to get some of these very popular topical interview questions that are all over the internet, right? So if you're practiced, you're more comfortable. If you practice, you will have a leg up on your competition, because lots of people think in their head that they know what they're going to say, but they haven't actually practiced saying it. So get together with your people, practice, give each other feedback, take notes, and continue to formulate your answers. Okay, last but not least, etiquette and Zoom. I can't even tell you how many Zoom interviews I've done. I've seen unmade beds. I've seen towels, I've seen dirty laundry, I've seen cats, I've seen kids. Cats and kids don't bother me, can't control them. But have your Zoom set up as well as you can, clean background, camera at eye level at the best of your ability, ring light, get your lighting well set up. Again, you can practice all these things. Anyway, are we having Zoom trouble?
We're fixing it.
Okay.
You can keep going.
Okay, perfect. So those are my big three main takeaways. Create your interview inventory. Work on your interview questions. Practice. I guess that's 2A. Practice, practice, practice. And then make sure that your Zoom background's clean. Always send a thank you note. Today, send it over email. Most of us aren't working in our offices. Do not forget that thank you note, 24 hours. And good luck. If you have any questions, my contact information is included in the slide deck and the information we'll share today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Let me add one thing to that when you're interviewing, especially for a business. I mean, a nonprofit, totally different. But if you're talking to a commercial operation, a bank, a company, anything that's profit-making business, one thing to tell the potential employer is, what are you going to do for them? I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of students I've interviewed. And I said, so why are we here? And their answer is, well, this is what I want out of this job. I want to do this. I want this experience. I want to have that. I want to do this. I want to get. I don't care what you want. We're in business to make money. You have to tell me how you're going to help me do this. And I guarantee you, if you do, you will be in a very, very small minority of people that do that. Keep in mind what they want, what the person on the other side of the table is looking for. It's nice that they can provide you with experience, but that's not why they're hiring you. Okay? There's something to be different. Okay? We're glad to have Steve Helmbrecht here. Steve has some purple and gold somewhere deep in his closet, but he's a real dag. We're pleased at the university to have him on the Board of Regents, and it's been a great help to us in a lot of projects over the years.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm Steve Helmbrecht. I am a co-founder and CEO of a fintech, financial tech startup called Treasury4. We founded about a year ago here in Spokane, and our focus is on developing SaaS software for corporate treasury and finance, including legal entity management, cash, foreign exchange exposure analysis, and some other complicated areas you start to see in corporate settings where companies have grown substantially. As Kevin mentioned, I'm not a graduate of Gonzaga, but I've been on the Board of Regents for many years, 7 or 8 years. And during the years I was the CFO at ICOM, each year I have a senior class for the BOEING program come out to meet with a lot of my colleagues on my team because they're very supportive of the university. And we just wrapped up an internship program in our first year with 2 Gonzaga students as well, one graduating and junior third year as well. So we want to be really supportive of the community based in Spokane. Prior, I was with the CEO of a private investment company called Lakeside Capital, John Henderson, and private investing across a wide variety for about 4 years. And prior to that, for 12 years, I was with a company called Itron, publicly traded here in Liberty Lake, the lead provider of technology for electric, gas, and water utilities, both in metering and meter data collection. And during that time, I was the CFO for almost 10 years, and we grew from a couple $100 million to over $2.3 billion in revenue. We did 9 acquisitions over 5 years for $2 billion, and we had about 6,000 employees, 60 locations in 30 countries. And if I told you I was prepared for all of that, I'd be lying. I wasn't, we weren't. So one of the main things is that you're always going to face challenges as students and you do in the work world, and it's a great opportunity to grow and learn. You can do it at any time. And then I also spent a few years in London with another fintech company rather early in my career. So international experience was quite valuable. The topic I want to talk about is skills, partial skills that finance employers are looking for. And I, of course, can't speak for everyone on the panel, but hope I can hit some of the high points. And the first one is pretty obvious, so I'll share it. The basic finance and accounting understanding is critical. You don't have to be an expert at that or in any area, but a basic understanding of financials and finances. Kevin said it's about profitability, making money, and understanding what those key drivers are. That's critical for you. The other is just analytics, and it's not just raw data, but it's the ability to tell stories. What's coming out of it? I used to tell my team, when the board asked a question, if they were asking a question about the weather, don't give them barometric pressure readings. Tell them how the weather is outside. Give them the story, and then if you need backward data. I think that's really critical in telling them. Some of the other elements that are really important are this confidentiality and maturity. If you want to be in finance, you are going to be dealing with some of the most confidential information either related to clients, prospective clients, employees, your business itself, proposed transactions in M&A. It's all about that when we look to that. And professionalism, how you communicate as well. That's key. And then the ability to just an eagerness to learn. I think that's fundamentally a key element that we look for. And you can look for that in students. And really, to summarize, I say this all the time, but I always look for in recruiting and interviewing three things: smart, hardworking people who care. And when I say smart, I don't just mean GPA, because smart's more than just your academic score. It's a willingness to learn and desire. And there's also a whole other form of being smart in terms of listening to learn and retaining what you've learned and being able to feed that back later on. And then emotional intelligence, that's a form of being smart. Hardworking is not the hours you put in per se. You do have to put in a lot of hours. Kevin will tell you that. It's more than that. It's just a willingness to work hard, help others, and you just give that in your attitude. And if you can convey that skill set in your interviewing, that's key. And then caring. So care about the company, care about the customers, care about others. And I always say it's okay to be ambitious, but if you care about those three things, caring about yourself will take care of itself as well. And so those three are fundamental areas I think you look for in finance.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Next, we're moving along pretty well. John Odor is here in front in the room, great friend of the university and a ZAG, and a banker.
This is my first time speaking with a mask on, so I don't really know how to do it very well. So I'm going to try my best. It's really a great honor and privilege to be here. And I wish I had time to meet every student, on an individual basis and hear your story and find out what your interests are and what you think you're good at and what you see yourself doing as a career after you graduate. For myself, when I was at Gonzaga, going to Florence, Italy was very popular, but I asked myself the question, why the hell would I learn Italian? And so I turned it a little bit and said, well, maybe I should learn how to speak Chinese. So at that time, Gonzaga had a foreign exchange program in China, and I was fortunate enough to join that program, and I went and lived in China. And after I graduated, again, I don't recommend doing this, but I bought a one-way ticket to Hong Kong without a job. I forgot to mention that. And but I got hired by a bank there, Pretty Pacific Bank, in their corporate banking group, and they eventually merged with Bank of America. I moved into their investment banking group there, and I was recruited into Merrill Lynch in an investment banking role, and ended up at Credit Suisse, another bulge bracket investment bank. Ended up working in investment banking for over 20 years. Came back to Seattle 10 years ago and moved from working in the public markets to working in the private markets and focused on M&A. And in case you're not sure what M&A stands for, it stands for misery and agony. I always tell kids, don't do crack and don't do M&A. I mean, it's really bad for your health. We work very long hours, and it's really challenging sometimes to get deals closed. But when they do, it's a great feeling. So I'm proud to be a co-founder of Chinook Capital Advisors with my good friend Ed Kirk. Ed is also a Gonzaga alum, so I think we are the only investment bank on the planet founded by two Zags. We have 6 professionals in the firm. One of those professionals is Michael McIntyre. I know he's there.
Yep.
He's friendly face. We have 3 Zags and we have 3 non-Zags who wish they were Zags. No, they're rounding out our diversity and inclusion efforts in the firm. What we do is we get alongside business owners, and these business owners generally they've held this business for 10, 20, 30 years. They're at the point in their life where they really need professional advice to get organized, to plan for a sale of the business. So we go in there and help them get that business ready. And whether they want to exit the business or recapitalize with a private equity fund, we help them through that process. It is the most important transaction in their life. And when they pick Chinook Capital Advisors to guide them through that transaction, they're really entrusting the livelihood of themselves, their family, their employees, the family of their employees with our firm as their professional and trusted advisor. And we really take that role seriously. It becomes our sole purpose as a firm to really serve the client and help them through that transaction. And truly, I believe that we're changing lives at Chinook Capital Advisors by helping our clients do these transactions. I've been asked to talk about internships and the value of internships and why we should have internships. But there's a gentleman in the room here who I'm going to ask to stand next to me here. You didn't know this. This is not pre-planned. But put your hands together for Eric Lang. Eric, we were blessed to have Eric as an intern at Chinook Capital Advisors. He was a remote intern during COVID, did a phenomenal job, and then he came over and spent the summer with us at our offices in Kirkland. And I'll just ask you one question, Eric. Again, not rehearsed, and his heart is beating right now. I can feel it, actually. Don't worry. So what do you think you learned at Chinook? Like, what's your takeaway that you didn't really learn in the classroom?
Question. I really think the experience kind of taught me how important it is to, like Kevin was saying, how important it is to synthesize, or Steve was saying, sorry, how important it is to synthesize financial information and to tell a complete and compelling story. It's kind of the core of what Chinook does and what they do so well. I think that's just something that I took away from.
Thanks, Eric. But I don't think there's any debate that internships are a good idea, right? I think everybody here would agree that internships are a great idea. But as a professional, I see this void, the void between everyone agreeing that it's a good idea and taking the action steps to go out and get a meaningful internship. And so I would really encourage you, if there's one takeaway from the panel today, would be to really encourage you to have a plan to get a meaningful internship in your, in the area that you're studying. And we've talked about networking, talked about interviewing, but you really need to make it happen. And I mean, you may think about it as you need to get an A in getting an internship and treat it as a class. And the networking opportunity, with fellow Zags, I totally agree with Kevin. If you reach out to a Zag and say, hey, I'm a Zag, I'm interested in your job, your career, what you do, you have 20 or 30 minutes to share with me so I can ask you some questions. A very simple email, you have to do it, right? I mean, no one's going to type it for you. And I guarantee if you send out 10 or 20 or 30 of those emails to Zag alum that you can find on LinkedIn, you're going to be successful, and you're going to learn, you're going to expand your network and start to learn about maybe some other careers or some other companies and open some doors of opportunity. Now I have 3 children. My youngest son, he went away for college, and I talked to him on the phone, and I would say, you know, what are you doing? And he would always say, I'm busy. I'm like, what are you busy doing? I don't really understand what you're busy doing. And now he's a couple years out of school, and you know, he really has some regrets, you know, that he didn't take advantage of some of the opportunities that he had in college. So I'd really challenge you to give up the word busy. Like, everyone's busy, but nobody's busy, right? And think about, why are you here at Gonzaga? What do you want to take away from your Gonzaga experience? And really to prioritize, you know, if getting an internship is going to take some extra effort, to really prioritize that and get on top of it.
Thanks, John. The last of our panelists, Tim Henderson. There he is. Thanks, Tim. Go ahead. You're on mute.
How about now?
I think the most spoken sentence in the galaxy for the last
and
year.
you'd think almost 2 years into it that we could figure this out. But it happens almost every day. So thanks, appreciate it. I apologize in advance. John was just talking about being busy. I was up all night with a sick kid. I've been at work since 5 o'clock in the morning. So when you think about undergrads and you say you're busy, I'm sure the other panelists can relate to this. When you're in school, you have no idea. But appreciate all of you making the time. So I work in private wealth management for Morgan Stanley. So my team and I have been here for a number of years, but I started my career at Goldman Sachs down in the San Francisco Bay Area in 2000. I think I'm one of the few Zags who actually started at Goldman out of undergrad and worked on a team, originally on a corporate and venture services team. So worked with a lot of venture capital companies down in Silicon Valley, helping advise them on their holdings, ways to distribute shares back to their original investors, and also worked with the equity capital markets team at Goldman as companies were going public on direct-to-share programs or friends and family programs. And then in 2001, moved over to private wealth management and up to San Francisco. That's the way I describe it when I'm talking about my resume. The reality was the dot-com bubble blew up and they disbanded my team. And so we were scrambling for opportunities. And thankfully, I was able to join a private wealth management team within Goldman. Moved up to San Francisco with that team, was on a team there through 2007. We managed money for ultra high net worth families, foundations, and endowments in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we managed just under $3 billion for a number of families. My wife and I eventually wanted to get back closer to home. I'm originally from Seattle, and I always make the joke that everybody from Seattle is like a salmon. We might go away, but we're eventually going to find our way back home, and I wanted to get back home. Took about a year off just to travel and do some other things I wanted to do. And then started with UBS for a couple of years here in Seattle before jumping to JP Morgan for about 7 years. And then in 2018, my business partner and I moved our practice over to Morgan Stanley. So we have our own private wealth business within Morgan Stanley. We are responsible for working with ultra high net worth clients. We really view ourselves as managing the complete balance sheets of clients. So when John Odor is talking about businesses he's selling, clients that he's working with, on the back end of that transaction is really where we come into play. So most of our clients have gone through life-changing liquidity events. They've sold businesses that either their family has held for years or they've built up over time, or perhaps they were an entrepreneur and started a technology business that has either gone public or had some other sort of transaction. So we handle everything with a dollar sign attached to our clients' financial lives. So the core of what we do is going to be managing a portfolio typically based on their goals and objectives. But around that, it's credit, everything from as simple as a mortgage to an aircraft loan to an art loan. It's helping out with everything tax, trust, and estate related. It could be something as insurance, like insurance. So everything related to a dollar sign in their life is really where we come into play. I think Danielle asked me to talk about the CFA program. So I earned my CFA charter in 2006. That was a very rigorous process and spent 3 years doing that. I do think that is well worth your time once you're in finance. And even if you're an undergrad, thinking about taking that level 1 as a senior is a fantastic idea. Merely signing up, showing your interest in finance by signing up for the level 1 program just helps you stand out relative to other resumes. It's something else that to help differentiate you and to show you're committed and you're serious and you really want to be in finance. So happy to talk more about that if folks have time. Just to kind of reiterate some of the other things that the panelists were talking about, networking is incredibly important. It's how I found my first job. I graduated at a great job market, great time. It's like today. There's a lot of jobs out there, and networking is really going to allow you to stir that pot, find connections to companies, and really find the best opportunity for you. And it's best to do that early on, to find internships and start testing the waters. The other thing that Steve mentioned is, about Zags, and Kevin was talking about this at the beginning. Zags like to help Zags, and the thing I like to tell undergrads today is that the school was a lot smaller when I was there. 20 years ago, the school is about half the size as it is today. So that network is so much smaller. So when you reach out to people in our position today who graduated 20 years ago, we still think of it as that small, sleepy Gonzaga. So we want to help students in a way that UW alum don't want to help other UW alum. Everybody in the Seattle area that went to UW is being hit up by undergrads. It's a different story with Gonzaga. It's a special place, and we all have a special place in our hearts for it. So we do want to help out. We do want to give back. That's why we do things like this. So happy to answer any other questions or dive into more detail on anything.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Michael, you want to change that next slide? No. What we've got up here is a list of some of the key things you've heard about today. What should you be doing, right? And when should you be doing it? One of the takeaways here is you should all be doing all of it now. And next year, the year after, there's a lot to it. Some of it's figuring out what you want to do. And part of the message is explore. Today's career day in finance. There's going to be career days in lots of other disciplines in the business. Go to all of them. You have no idea what's out there. You probably. There's a lot of people who come into my office and say, I want to do M&A. And I say, well, how do you know? Have you done it? The answer is they haven't. But they don't really know until you're actually experiencing it. So get out and find out what's out there. There are people making livings on Wall Street today in jobs that didn't even exist 5 years ago. Explore. No cost to you, right? You can sit there, you can ask questions. The reality is with the mask and everything on, none of us are going to have a freaking clue who you are tomorrow. So ask questions that might seem silly, you might feel embarrassed. There's no cost to it. Explore, find out. That's the takeaway of all this stuff. Be active. And you're in a special place. You've heard a real consistent theme from the panelists. This is a special place. And we all help each other. Okay? So we're doing pretty well on time. There's a question from the chat room, I think, and I have no idea how to get to it.
But we can start with the audience.
We can start? All right. Questions? For anybody on the panel, I will kind of direct traffic. You have to speak up.
I'm a freshman, and I just want to know, like, what are some advice from you guys that you're doing that, like, do you guys have any advice that I can be for me to do?
It is the same advice for you to everyone, you in particular, especially all the freshmen?
Yeah, just like, as a freshman.
Explore. Explore. There's no downside. One. Be curious. Talk to as many people as you can. Look through the alumni. Talk to your other students. Find out who worked where, who's doing accounting, who's doing finance, who's doing whatever it is. And ask them, what is it you like? What is it you don't like?
I guess I would just add as a freshman, can you get an internship between your freshman and sophomore year that's meaningful? And I think one of my, when I see a resume, I always ask the same question, right? I say, what did you do what did you do between your senior year and your freshman year of college? What did you do between your freshman year and your sophomore year? Like, how did you spend that summer? You know, how did you, position yourself to learn something, that you can take with you in your professional career? And, sometimes, maybe somebody did, they volunteered somewhere or they traveled, but I think the greatest challenge for freshmen would be to, how can you get a meaningful internship in next summer and start thinking about your plan for that internship.
Anybody on the Zoom want to comment on that?
Kevin, can you repeat the question that was asked?
The question was specifically for freshmen. What should they be doing?
And I think John spoke to this, that getting any sort of internship, it might not be the internship you're going to have between your junior and senior year, which hopefully will be really impactful. But doing something, getting some sort of even general office experience, getting something to put on your resume between your freshman and sophomore year is incredibly helpful, and hopefully that will lead to a better position. So just putting that initial building block in place between your freshman and sophomore year, I think it's just put you off to such a great start.
It's important to have something where you're working, right? Story I always tell, and there's on Wall Street a lot of sales and trading business. The interns in sales and trading business, their job is to that's only. You should see the very fancy descriptions of what they learn on the resume. The point is, you can take a lot away from it and turn it into something that creates a conversation in the interview session. That you learn something. It's less about the specific and more about how you group up. Over here.
Do you think it's more beneficial to go straight to grad school after leaving, or do you think it would be better to go to school?
So the question is, it's one that comes up a lot. Is it more beneficial to go directly to grad school or go to work and then go to grad school? Is that fair? Okay. I have a very strong opinion about this one. And it comes up every year in the New York track and in most of the classes that I've been in on campus. The answer is it depends on whether or not you know where you want to live. Okay? And I'll explain why. The reason is an MBA doesn't really make you smarter. It's a proxy for experience. It gives you exposure to different ideas, different business problems, and it elevates your experience set that you may not get day to day in the job. Okay? That's really what it's for, in my opinion. The top ranked business schools in the country and in the world, they won't let you in right out of school. They insist on every student coming in having 2, 3, 5, 6 years of experience. The reason for that is because you're not learning in those schools. The learning isn't coming from Professor Zhu standing in front of you telling you all these great things. The learning comes from your classmates. Here's a business problem. Somebody that spent 2 years working at BOEING has a perspective. Somebody that spent 3 years working at Deloitte over here has a different perspective. The person whose work experience came from Procter & Gamble has a different perspective. That's where you learn, which is why they insist on students having work experience. Okay? The reason I think it matters where you want to live is because, you know, that degree from Harvard or Stanford or Northwestern, for that matter, it's a brand and it travels. If you are in the UW, as an example, has a great MBA course. But if you want to live in Atlanta, the brand on that degree does not travel as well as if you got an MBA at North Carolina. Okay? Same thing with Gonzaga, same thing with UCLA. There's some really good programs, but the brand doesn't travel as well. So if you're thinking about it as an investment, that's just a fact. And that gets back to, there are some schools that simply won't let you in without work experience. And in my case, I was so burned out of school by the time I got done. Taking 2 years off and working. I wasn't taking it off, I was working. Not only was it a great experience, but it was refreshing. But there's a lot of factors to it. That's my perspective on the grad school. Anybody else want to comment?
I agree with Kevin overall that it depends, it's situational, but I agree with what Kevin said. I think one of the many benefits out of working a couple of years before going is to be in an organizational setting and just learning how things get done. It's not just the functional experience you gain, but you gain organizational experience. And I think that benefit can benefit itself in graduate school then in terms of more how you can apply that, plus what you learn functionally, plus maybe a better understanding of where you want to go. As Kevin was saying, kind of combine that, I think, in terms of going into school. But I'd say generally, I agree with Kevin that generally having some work experience is what I've seen work well for people. And as they start to decide they want to do where they want to go, and then grad school becomes a helpful mechanism to get there.
Yeah, and this is John Scacciotti. I'd agree with all that. I'd also really emphasize that there are such differences between MBA programs. It's not like undergraduate where there's a standard model. Cost, time frame, prerequisites, alumni networks are all very different. And so I would make sure you know exactly what you're hoping to get out of that investment before you make it, rather than step into a program that doesn't offer you exactly what you were hoping to get out of it.
We've got a question, question from the chat room. An MBA student asking, what if I don't have an undergraduate business degree? How does that impact? My answer to that is most of my classmates when I was in grad school didn't have undergraduate business degrees. They're engineers, they're poli-sci, it doesn't matter. That's a lot of what the MBA programs will do. Your basic classes in a lot of these programs are some of the fundamentals that you all are doing right now. So I don't think it's a handicap, personally. Depends what you do with it. Okay.
I guess this is for anybody who would feel free to answer it. Is there a noticeable skill improvement that should be made by undergrads that you guys are seeing coming out of school? Meaning, is there something we should be working on now that typically isn't focused on in the general classroom setting?
Okay. Go for it, John.
He said he's asking.
But John, you just work with Eric.
I think that the thing that Eric hit on and John did as well is critical. Synthesizing the data, the so what? What does this mean? Don't just spit facts back in. The first job I had when I left Gonzaga before going to grad school was at a bank in town. And the first assignment I got from my boss, do this analysis, and I got it done and I gave it to him. And he said, okay, what do you think? And my response was, I did what you told me. I didn't know I was supposed to. The point is to think. Don't just give me a bunch of data. What does it mean? Every project I worked on in my banking career, the first year analyst and second year would come in, the first assignment, I would say, whoever the youngest person in the room is, you go to that person and say, what do you think? What should they do? And usually they just slapped and failed and sputtered. But they learn. They learn next time they're going to come in with an answer. They have an opinion. It's not your job, day one, to be correct in a broader judgment context. It's to demonstrate that you can think and that you will. My job over time to help you frame that. Okay, that's one way to do it. Here's another way to do it. Did you think about this? It's hard to teach somebody to have the maturity, the self-confidence, the analytical perspective that's broader than just the numbers, to think and to have a view and to actually tell you what they think. All of the jobs represented by the folks up here and here, you're presenting ideas. You're solving problems. Solving problems, creating a solution, and then you're selling that solution, whether it's in writing or verbally. That's what you're doing in every one of these situations. Whether you're working with a family who's selling their 40-year lifetime investment, whether you're working with a client on trying to solve a financial processing situation or mission, right? Everyone's the same. When you boil down what I just said, it's critical thinking. That's what you're learning in this school, folks. You may not know what's happening. It's seeping, it's in the water, it's in the air.
I think, you know, it's interesting. If I look at the people that are the most successful, the reason why they're successful, there's no class at Gonzaga that teaches that. So people that are great team players, people that have perseverance, people that are very detail-oriented, people that ask questions, people that have a great attitude, you know, people that are hungry, that people that are looking for the answer on their own rather than asking the question. You know, I think those are the characteristics, you know, of people that are very successful, you know, in my work experiences. And, you know, that doesn't really come from a class. I mean, technical skills are important. They're very important, but you know, the attitude and the aptitude is just as important. If that answers your question.
I had a quick question for Steve. I was wondering what exactly made you gravitate towards the tech industry, and what's some advice or key skills you would give to undergrads to get some projection?
That's a great question. Is what caused me to gravitate towards the fintech industry, and then what advice or perspective would I give? That's a great question. I started my career in accounting and thought I was going to be in tax. I actually have a master's in tax, but I gravitated towards financial management, investment management, and entrepreneur in an entrepreneurial setting. And because of that, we had to start to use software to help manage complex fixed income, mortgage-backed securities, and so forth. So I found myself having to use the technology as an end user, which then got me quite interested in the whole area of just determining how I determined that I really enjoyed working with tools to help people. That's what software really is there. Two users use it the same way, that they can create these amazing solutions out of technology. So early on, that's what really interested me. And I like the fintech area because I like working with the B2B side, and it's the business more with corporate users and institutions. And so that just kind of fed into focusing on the fintech and that side. So I would say back to, you know, how to be open-minded to opportunities that are out there, and sort of tying together also, I'll tie it to this third question as well, is I'd say one area you have today that certainly those of us 20, 30 plus years, the amount of technology that's available, even on a, you know, free or use the Tableau or Power BI, we didn't have access to those kind of tools as openly, even on an evaluation of student licensing. So take advantage of what's out there technology-wise as a student that's complementary to what you're learning in the classroom, but to be able to take advantage of utilizing those types of technologies, and then for yourself determining what you really like in certain areas. And it gets back to really overarching theme, and don't be afraid to ask through your network or others to try to get connected then by combining those.
Yeah, like that. Being LS and finance.
Yeah, we really go together. So,
one right here in front.
I'm curious what motivated you to go to China right after graduation. And as you said, only take a one-way ticket.
Well, I went to the question is why did I go to China? And very easy answer. I went to the lunchroom and there was a table. A table said pre-approved credit cards. So I walked up and I got a pre-approved credit card with $2,000 of a credit limit on it. So if I didn't have that pre-approved credit card, I wouldn't have been able to afford the plane ticket. I read a book. It was called it's on a shoestring. That's the book. So you can do China on a shoestring, Hong Kong on a shoestring, Thailand on a shoestring. And I calculated that I could live for $20 a day, room and board. And so I kind of figured out if I probably had about a 2-month window that I could go there and network and interview. And if I couldn't get a job, then I was going to fly home. So fortunately, I got the job. So probably not a very good answer. But.
There was a hand over here.
So I know it's not either or, but I was wondering if that job applicants, you care more about real experience or
So the question, and I'll ask everybody, it's not an either or, but if you had to balance between GPA or internship work experience, how do you fall on those factors? Anybody up on the screen? Jill, that's a good one for you.
Yeah, I look at both. I don't screen for GPA, and I want to see experience. I want to see a solid GPA, and I want to see steady work experience. And to the question earlier, finding a job after after you graduated from high school, finding another job after your freshman year of college, those are critical. I want to see solid work experience. You're a customer service clerk at Safeway. I want to see that you were employee of the month, right? That I want to see that you engaged. So, I want to see both. I want to see community involvement as well. Those are the 3 legs of the stool that I look for.
I would just comment, and I know when you're in the game, like you're fighting for like every grade, like an A- or an A or a B+ or an A-, and it seems like incredibly important. But, I would say, for, as long as you're 3.5 and above, it's good enough. I don't think, whether you're 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, I mean, if you're going to go on and get your PhD and you want to be a professional student and you want to be very competitive from a GPA perspective, that's one thing. But I would say for, careers in finance, 3.5 and above is good enough. And then everything else is more important, the internships and all that. So just my opinion. I could be wrong.
I completely agree with that. I wouldn't trade off the grades for your ability to take the time to do other things, to broaden your experience. One of my sons is really brilliant, and I've told him many times, you are the dumbest 4.0 kid I've ever met. Common sense goes a very long way in this world, and that doesn't show up in your GPA necessarily. So I think that's a very good question and a very important. It's balance. The experience matters, and there's a cost to that. You may not be able to spend that much time in class or doing homework. So we're out of time. I want to first thank the panelists on the screen and here in the room. Thank you very much. Shout out to Michael McIntyre up there, who did put all the slides together and organized everybody. I was going to thank him, but he left, so we don't have to pass. And then to Danielle Zhu and the finance faculty, some of whom are here. Thank you for organizing.